B&S Sorcery is finally finished, and you might be asking yourself, what do you mean finished? The game's been out since June 17th. Yes, I remember the day, don't ask me why. And I use the words finally finished because in addition to Warpfrog absolutely busting their behinds on delivering a very top quality game, there's been one thing that truly puts the cherry on top to make it feel truly complete. Something that ever since U7, I think, has completely shifted the entire game into a completely different entity. Something that has honestly probably helped skyrocket the game into more popularity than it ever could have expected, and has probably been a huge reason as to why B&S Sorcery is one of the top played VR games of all time. Well, next to VR Chat, of course. It's number 2. It's number 2 on the Steam charts. Yet to understand this and what comes next from here, we gotta go back to the start of things. Now, I know for a fact this is not the first time you've heard about B&S Sorcery on this channel, considering the fact that I've done multiple videos on it. But you've heard me talk about it before, and I'm damn well gonna do it again. 5.5 years. 5.5 years, I think, is when B&S Sorcery originally went into early access. And just a little under 5 years ago is when I first got exposed to VR. It started with my brother introducing me to a VR arcade where I tried out some of my very first VR games, that being Beat Saber, Arizona Sunshine, and Climby. B&S Sorcery was way too violent for VR arcades. Since then, I truly thought, besides those three, the first game I actually downloaded when I got my headset was B&S Sorcery. Because after that initial VR arcade experience, I started researching a bunch of VR games that I could try out and play. And one of the first things I saw was B&S Sorcery, which I think was maybe from Node or maybe from like some other channel. I'm not necessarily certain. A cool medieval fantasy VR fighting game which absolutely blew my mind in terms of the complexity of the gameplay, the graphics, at the time, and the attention to detail in level design and its physics. I first played it when the game looked like this. Yes, I know, hold your applause, relax, everybody chill out. Which was 5 years ago, and fast forward to now, the changes are insane. I've been a fan of this series for a number of years now, and with the long road it's had over the last 5 years leading up to this, from a VR physics tech demo into a fully interactable dungeon crawling melee fighting progression game, it might be safe to say that B&S Sorcery has just become the best VR game to date. For now, at least. For now, I'm telling you, timestamp that shit! When you hear the words early access, it almost seems like it'll never come out. Yet in hindsight, Warpfrog has been busting their asses over the years to absolutely deliver on this top quality VR game. As I said before, I've mentioned B&S Sorcery several times on this channel throughout videos, comparisons, and what I consider to be the top shelf of VR games. But now that it's actually officially finished and released, I had never realized that those 5 years of hype had amounted to this moment. The update has offered more than I could ever ask for, and I know that the community will confidently build upon it as well. Now, I know that I could confidently say that in comparison to Bone Lab, for example, because I've seen it already. It's happened for a number of years. Editing Roto here, can we quickly talk about the marketing of B&S Sorcery as well? Just the way that you guys like actually formulate your trailers carry the same beats that movie trailers do. You can really hear the impact of the drums going thump, 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 and emphasizing what's actually happening on screen, which I think is just awesome. Okay, now I can probably stop sucking the ever-living shit out of this game's dick. Now that 1.0 has been out for a couple months at this point, giving us time to really experience and see everything that the update has to offer, even though we'd been messing around in a sandbox for the better part of 5.5 years, it's actually really nice to have the pacing and progression to work towards. Not to mention that the people are going to use the progression framework to implement some of their own mods. People have already spent ages revolutionizing the game time and time again, but now have an even larger framework to build off of. The one thing that I really found nice about this update was the pacing of the gameplay as well. I'm no longer just tearing it up through arenas and dungeons anymore because there's actually an incentive to stop and look for and collect loot around the dungeons so I can upgrade my equipment and weapons at the shop. I also started with absolutely no powers, and this at the beginning of the game was a really good way to reintroduce the dungeons that I've already been so used to, without having to tire myself out of the Dalgarian dungeons so quickly. The immersiveness from the shop has been a really nice addition, and the Dalgarian dungeons just have huge and beautiful open areas that absolutely shock me at the fact that my PC is still running instead of Now at this point, people have already seen what 1.0 has to offer with the dungeons, the immersive gameplay, the interactable shop, the Baron being in the game, and unfortunately being a victim to the community's brutality.
Baron, could you tell me the price on this electric knife, please? Thank you. Baron, You didn't tell me you were selling the fucking gravity hammer, bro. Jesus Christ.
The new factions, the skill tree, the map redesigns, and the unexpected but surprisingly rich lore, to the point where I actually sat down and read. I was reading a book in VR, in a fighting game. You don't understand how insane that is. Can you shut the fuck up, bro? Jesus, and my arm just died. And the AI immediately being acknowledged as stupid and getting worked on so quickly post-launch, and tons more.
Is this just a fucking D12, bro?
Alright, I'm sneaking with height advantage and I cast Thunderbolt. Okay, 5 damage. So you might be still questioning exactly what do I mean by complete. This is pod racing. That doesn't even connect with what the fuck I'm doing right now. Of course, it wouldn't be a Blade and Sorcery video without mentioning the mods. And what better than to talk about the mod? This right here is what truly completed the game. Funny enough that the best Star Wars VR game is not even a Star Wars game at all. But then again, some of the best ideas, innovation, concepts come from mods. Look at DayZ, for example, even though that game pisses me off all the fucking time. Introducing the Outer Rim, which y'all have probably known about at this point. It's nothing new. The game's biggest overhaul mod that's been a thing since U7, as I previously mentioned, when the game looked like this. Yeah, I know, take it in. As I previously mentioned, it's probably the thing that helped skyrocket what was already an amazing game being worked on for years to become the absolute number 2 VR game of all time. Okay, well, I guess in that sense, VR chat is more of like a social interaction, so I guess I can technically count Blade and Sorcery as the #1 like game, because it's more of a game as opposed to a social interaction, even though VR chat technically has their own. I'm rambling. Regardless, it's one of the top VR games of all time. There we go. That's an easier way to say it. With passionate modders adding so much Star Wars content and lightsabers that I couldn't believe the level of detail and customizability in just a mod. This shit was a hefty download, bro! But basically, it overhauled the entire game, giving us iconic weapons, gear, character skins, levels, and even changing the dungeons to have whatever Star Wars faction you wanted to fight through. Okay, well, like 4 Star Wars factions, but basically, you know what I mean. I think it was 4. I should probably check. This mod, I believe, is why Blade and Sorcery was the first game I got on VR, because the second I saw you can mod in lightsabers.
Shut up and take my money!
Even the fact that along with this release, they still got more to go is crazy, but then again, like the endless Star Wars content, there's always something new to look forward to. The Outer Rim is just the cherry on top, the icing on the cake, the end of a gooning session to this game. And it's what makes it finally feel truly complete. I don't know what the fuck I was trying to do there.
This is actually just fucking poop.
I'm gonna make you swallow this shit.
Oh, he actually... That's disgusting! Oh my god! I'm sorry, bro. You gotta go after that shit. That's a tough way to go, man. I actually just made someone swallow shit.
So the question is, what now? What's Warpfrog's future plans? Now, although this update is called The End, signifying a lot of things. The end of major content for Blade and Sorcery, the end of early access, blah, blah, blah. Warpfrog seemed to have hinted that it isn't just stopping. They're already proving it with the bug fixes and everything, but they mentioned that they're working on another game. Well, they've got Nomad first, and then the next game after that, but... Baron's word, it's already up to the high standard of what we've played, but it's using a much more improved framework. As to his post, they claim that it's not going to be a sequel game, but they actually may revisit the universe sometime in the future. I'm talking far into the fucking far as shit. See, Blade and Sorcery's updates took long for a multitude of reasons, but one of them was the fact that they were working on the same framework since 2018. Hell, probably older than that, to be honest with you. Now, I can imagine that some of you can't even fathom having a phone, a console, a computer for that long. But the fact that they've been working on the same framework for over 6 years ago, disgusting that 2018 was 6 years ago, bro. What the fuck? In a world where we get massive app updates yearly, if not faster, you can imagine that got in the way of a ton of things and slowed down progression majorly. Yet they mentioned that they're using a new framework which should kick things into gear from now. So enjoy the mods that are going to be continually pumped out for years on end in the new finished game. They luckily won't need to be revamped over and over again as we've experienced over the years, but they'll only just get improved upon from now. And eventually, when it's time, Warpfrog would have cooked something new. Probably still faster than fucking Bethesda. Leave.